Thank you, Donald, and good evening. I've been here today in Strasbourg, where there's been a big debate in the Parliament this morning on the future of the European Union. And I made a little speech this morning where I told them that whatever they say, whatever they think, almost doesn't matter, because there has been an attitudinal shift amongst the voters in the European Union that I think spells the end of this project in its current form. This is what I said. Mr. Verhofstadt this morning said the people want more Europe. They don't. The people want less Europe. And we see this again and again when people have referendums and they reject aspects of EU membership. But something more fundamental is going on out there. Yes, you can say they're lying, and I've no doubt that many of you here, when you hear what I'm about to say, will probably despise your own voters. Because just last week, Chatham House, the reputable group, published a massive survey from 10 European member states, and only 20% of people want immigration from Muslim countries to continue. Just 20% want us to keep on allowing people in from Muslim countries, which means your voters have a harder line position on this than Donald Trump or myself or, frankly, any party sitting in this Parliament. And that is where we're going. And I simply cannot believe that you're blind to the fact that even Mrs. Merkel has now made a U-turn and wants to send people back. Even Mr. Schulz thinks that it's a good idea. The fact is, the European Union has no future at all in its current form, and I suspect you're in for as big a shock in 2017 as you were in 2016. Well, what can you say? It is a remarkable piece of polling. Chatham House, a very reputable group, in many ways a very establishment group, and they polled 10,000 people across 10 different European countries, big countries mostly, and they asked them a simple question: should all further migration from mainly Muslim countries be stopped? And the results were astonishing. In Poland, 71% said yes. In the United Kingdom, it was below 50%. In Spain, it was below 50%, but in Germany and the others, it was all consistently well above 50%. But only 20%, only 1 in 5 out of this 10,000 survey thought actually that maintaining some form of immigration from these countries made sense. Now, I have spent much of my political career arguing that immigration should be controlled, fighting and saying we must be careful about allowing terrorists into our country, and we need to vet carefully. But I myself would never, ever suggest that we should totally ban people ever coming to Britain to settle from those countries. And all that Donald Trump tried to do was to put in a 90-day suspension whilst they worked out what the vetting should be. So I'm asking you this question tonight: do you think that the concern now of voters over Muslim immigration has reached the point of hysteria? Are we simply going too far? And I've been painted out as being this hardliner. I actually think that a total ban on anyone from these countries coming to the United Kingdom or France or elsewhere, frankly, is taking this too far and is likely, possibly, to even provoke more extremism. But please let me know what you think on this vexed issue. Call me now on 0345 60 60973. Text me on 84850. Tweet me on @LBC using the hashtag Farage and LBC, and watch us live on the Facebook page now. And I'm going to go straight to Gareth in Liverpool. Gareth, the European voters are clearly miles away from their leaders. Are they being somewhat too extreme with this view?
Absolutely not. Nigel, before I go on, can I just say great honour to talk to you, and I want to say a massive thank you for all the work that you've done. You've spent the last 17 years trying to talk yourself out of a job, essentially.
I have. No, Gareth, I am the turkey that voted for Christmas. Don't worry about that. But back to this question.
Right. Yeah, sorry, but no, I think people are starting to see through the political correctness. People scared to offend anyone, trying to keep it was never going to happen. It was going to reach a critical point where it all imploded, and I think we're starting to see that, where people are looking through the political correctness to stop you have this culture of being perpetually offended and these these completely permanently offended people, and we're saying, no, stop, something's got to happen. This is the case. Yes, it's going to upset some people, but the safety of people is relying on this happening. I don't think Trump went too far at all. I think he did exactly the right thing, and I think if some people within our own government had the guts that he's had to do this and stand up and say, yep, it's not going to please everyone, but it's absolutely necessary, I don't think we'd be in as bad a mess as we're in now. If you go and look, you can find online footage of what's happening in Paris, what's happening in Sweden. You know, Europe is in a mess. It's being underreported in the media for fear of people going, well, hang on a minute, something needs to be done.
Gareth, tell me, do you feel less safe living in Liverpool than you did 5 years ago?
100%. I lose sleep about what's going to happen. I really do worry.
Gareth, many thanks indeed for your call. I wonder what Danny in Epsom thinks. Danny, European citizens appear to be in complete revolt against their leaders, and in particular, I would suggest, against Mrs. Merkel, who, of course, a couple of years ago said everybody's welcome and has now done a U-turn. But are we going too far, Danny, by saying we should ban everybody from these countries?
I don't think we are. I think the bloke in the pub, the bloke that you talk to who lives next door, everyone behind the scenes, a bit like Brexit, is saying the same thing. You know, I think one particular group of people, one small percentage of the population have caused so many issues, not just terrorism and terrorism sympathies, but female genital mutilation, sham marriages, acid attacks, honour killings. You know, you really can go on. Just that one small group have done that. And we have to think about crimes now that my dad or my granddad's generation would never have had to have thought about. You know, and I think
So, Danny, your point is not the fear of terrorism. That was what Gareth felt living in Liverpool. What you're saying is there's a lack of integration, yeah?
Well, of course there is. Anyone with eyes can see that. I mean, I think that what Merkel done to the German population recently is nowhere near as bad as what Blair done to us. I think in their 13-year tenure, I saw the town and city that I grew up in change in front of my eyes. You know, I know full well that he allowed 5 or 6 million people from outside the EU. I mean, there was uncapped numbers. He didn't even cap new EU member states. And everyone I knew was just saying, have you seen where we live recently? Everyone was saying the same thing. And do you know what, Nigel? I think that if Blair hadn't have done that, we might not have seen the revolution in British politics we've just seen. Because
Danny. I mean, Danny. Honestly, Brexit would not have happened if Blair hadn't opened the doors in the way that he did. I totally agree with that. But do you think that Islam is a real threat to our way of life?
I do. Whilst we all know people that are Muslim and they're lovely, I just think, you know, when people were polled after Charlie Hebdo, you know, and 25% of the people that were polled had sympathies, and you know, you hear about these madrasas and these schools, and I mean, you see people all the time purposefully not assimilating, and I think most people, right, Nigel. It's not 1972, you know, no one's against immigration, right? I think what most people didn't want was this kind of mass uncontrolled immigration where everything you know and everything you loved and your culture was completely taken from you. And I think people are bitter.
But Danny, they're the points that I've made. That was, I mean, the basis in many ways of much of my political campaign for UKIP and indeed in the referendum. But what this polling is saying is that in these 10 big EU states, a majority of people want zero immigration from Muslim countries. That's going a bit further, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, I can understand why I think that. Because, I mean, I gave you a list of about 10 different issues that their particular community, their particular community are basically bringing with them. When you let millions of people from the developing world come and live in your country for a better life, they bring the developing world with them, and in turn, there is a detriment to your own life, to your modern life, and it's clear to anyone with eyes. I mean, the way that London's changed, it's now full of people not from London and what I would call new Londoners, this sort of lovies. And we saw it, and one of the biggest contributing factors to Londoners moving out of London was mass uncontrolled immigration from 50s and 60s. It's just, if you think about, we've had 60 years of this.
Of that, there's no doubt, Danny. Of that, there's no doubt. Listen, you've made your points beautifully. I thank you for your call. On Facebook, Milton Brown says, the vetting process for my wife coming to the US from the Netherlands was very tough. Do you honestly think it would be any less tough for someone coming from a Muslim country? Well, Milton Brown, I'm arguing for tough vetting. I'm not sure total bans are the right approach. Mark Edwards says the problem is they don't want to integrate. Political correctness was a funny irritant at first. Now it's dangerous. Aaron Bennett says, I find it interesting that the areas that voted most heavily for Brexit are those almost untouched by migration. Well, it could be, Aaron, they actually wanted to keep them the way they are. I wonder what Henry in New Haven makes of this. Henry, are you worried about Muslim immigration from countries like Iraq?
Hello, Nigel. Good evening. Yes,
evening.
I am worried about it. Mainly because there's so many countries where we're seeing huge issues. And these issues aren't just to do with the people that are coming from the countries. These are issues actually to do with the countries themselves. And I recently asked a question to YouTube, which is the fountain of all knowledge. Is Islam a religion of peace? And it came up with a wonderful debate with Zeba Khan and I believe Majid Nawaz. And they were debating against Aran Hirsi Ali and Douglas Murray.
Yeah.
And at the start of the debate, it was kind of 1/3 of the audience thought that Islam was a religion of peace, 1/3 thought it wasn't, and the other third didn't really have any idea on the subject at all. But after about an hour and a half of very informed debating, the overwhelming majority thought that Islam was not a religion of peace. And I believe that it's not everyone in Islam. Certainly it's a vast minority that are the issue, but it's a big enough minority to make it a problem for us with our vetting processes, and we certainly need to make them more stringent, stricter even.
Henry, I don't disagree with a single word of that. I've been arguing that for some years, and I've been told that I'm a hardliner for thinking and talking that way, and yet I'm a pussycat compared to the 10,000 people polled by Chatham House. A majority in 10 EU countries want a total ban on immigration from predominantly Muslim countries. My goodness me, how the world's changing. Right now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Number of celebrities and campaigners calling on Theresa May not to end this scheme for vulnerable and lone child refugees. It's named after its architect, Labour peer Lord Alf Dubs.
I still think that the majority of British people think bringing vulnerable children, unaccompanied child refugees to Britain is a good thing. We've got a good humanitarian tradition in this country, but I think we should bring more than 350. That's pretty miserable, really. So I'm delighted that these people have written a letter today in support.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, making you welcome at over 40 hotels in Europe.
Divorce. It affects every part of your life. You, your family, your home, your finances. And if you're a man facing divorce, perhaps even one you don't want, the situation becomes even more complicated. It's at times like these that you need a professional you can trust. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
At Oak Furnitureland, quality and price are both important. So make sure you don't miss our winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Our biggest ever winter sale is now on. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
Your perfect car's easy to find, and it's easy to buy too. Because at Car Giant there's up to 8,000 cars in stock, all in one location. And Car Giant's massive buying power means they're all at great prices. Giant choice, giant savings. No wonder so many Londoners fall in love for less. Book your test drive at cargiant.co.uk.
It's how London buys its cars. Car Giant.
Do you have a pension? Maybe you've got more than one.
How do you know if they're in the right pension funds, making as much money as possible for your retirement? Answer is, you probably don't. At the Pension Works, our fully qualified independent financial advisors could add instant value to your retirement fund. Simply text the word YES to 83222 for your free Pension Works health check. That's YES to 83222 today. Your pensions working harder with the Pension Works.
I'm Tom. I'm in year 11. I was always getting told off for talking, so I thought about the debating team. Now I'm thinking about university.
I put the debating team flyer on his desk. Was sick of telling him to pipe down. I wanted to put his voice to better use. Now he's thinking about university. I teach year 11. I'm Mr. Corbett.
Apply now and you could get a £25,000 tax-free training bursary to teach subjects like maths and languages. Search Get Into Teaching. Subject to eligibility. Selected subjects only.
Oh, Canada. Wide open spaces. The friendliest people. Unique landscapes as far as the eye can see. Discover our wide open country and get closer to your Canadian holiday with Air Transat. Flying daily from London Gatwick with meals and 23 kilogram of luggage allowance included. Book your direct flight today. Visit airtransat.co.uk. Your Canadian holiday is calling.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
I told the European Parliament this morning that this recent report that was produced by Chatham House showed that a clear majority of people in 10 big EU countries want a total ban on immigration from predominantly Muslim countries. They looked at me in total disbelief. They simply can't imagine they're that far away from public opinion, and that public opinion makes Trump and myself and the others look like moderates. Now, we talked before the break to Danny in Epsom, and he was worried about immigration and integration. And it's very interesting because the government Casey review last year that was out towards the end of 2016 said that segregation and social exclusion were at worrying levels and are fueling inequality in some parts of Britain. Women in some communities are denied even their basic rights as British residents, and her report highlighted the plight of women in some areas, and it was pointed out they're less likely to speak English and more likely to be kept at home. And I quote, "Misogyny and patriarchy has to come to an end," said Dame Louise Casey. Well, she also pointed out that many of our public institutions will not touch this issue for fear of being branded racist or Islamophobic. And yes, there is a real problem with integration. I was pretty shocked last year with what I saw in a suburb of Oldham, where, you know, the whole street, and if you went down the street and knocked on doors, virtually no one spoke English, despite the fact that many people have been there for 20 or 30 years. Very few women had jobs. One wondered in some cases whether they were really allowed to go out into the workplace. So I do get the argument that we should reduce immigration into communities like that. We should put a full focus on getting people integrated if we possibly can. But I still put it to you that the idea that we have a total ban on people coming and settling in this or any other European country, frankly, is a bit hysterical, even a little bit over the top. I wonder what Zach in Tottenham makes of this huge issue.
Hello, Nigel. Yeah, I mean, with the total ban, I think that's just absurd. I mean, you know, with banning Muslims temporarily, like, you know, Trump has done, just listen to, you know, he had gone through with it. I don't think that would exactly, you know, in fact, stop terrorists from getting. I mean, that point has been made over and over again on LBC that vetting people does not prevent terrorism. Terrorism is not something you can stop by blocking borders or building a wall. Terrorism is an ideology. You can't stop terrorism by just simply building a wall or stopping people from coming or you know, cancelling visas. It's an ideology. You know, Trump should.
No, Zach, I get that, Zach.
Trump should be.
Zach, I get that, but would you feel safer, Zach? Would you feel safer living in a country with Donald Trump as president, trying to do something about it, or with Angela Merkel 2 years ago saying everybody is welcome and we won't vet a single one of you. I mean, common sense surely says that whilst terrorism is an ideology, as you quite rightly say, having an open door to war-torn parts of the world surely doesn't make sense.
Just because Trump is doing something about it, that does not mean he's doing the right thing. That does not mean he's going about it the right way. This is what people are getting confused. People are getting confused about Trump doing something and doing something right. Just because he's doing something doesn't mean what he's doing is right. You don't ban countries, ban a whole country. You ban people who have actually been convicted of terrorism. This is what it comes down to. Now, when you ban total countries, it's sort of like saying everyone in that country is a terrorist. And unless you figure out who from that country is coming in, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Islam is a religion, and the religion needs to be understood by people who talk about it. If you don't understand Islam, then, all you're going to have about Islam is this picture about it being a terrorist religion. And it just comes down to ignorance. I'm a Muslim. I'm not against controlled immigration. I'm not against people, being patriotic about their country. But it's understanding, where does this ideology come from? This ideology does not come from every Muslim. This ideology comes from a certain group within Islam. And Trump is doing something about it, but is he doing it the right way is the question.
Well, Zach, you make some very good points there. I would just add to that, of course, that the man that caused that horrific attack in Berlin in the Christmas market was a failed asylum seeker. And had that been dealt with more robustly by Italy and Germany, then that attack probably could have been stopped. Your texts and tweets coming in. Anyone who suggests restricting Islamic immigration will lead to increased terror is tacitly admitting that there is a propensity to violence interwoven with the religion, says Michael. Why is Saudi Arabia not on the list, Nigel? Come on, tell us why. Anonymous. Well, I have to say, Anonymous, I've been arguing actually for a very long time that I think Saudi Arabia, in many ways, is the worst of all of these countries, because it's from Saudi Arabia that we have seen Wahhabism promoted. That is the extremism that has led to the burqa, face coverings, and many other things. And they do that whilst at the same time refusing to take a single migrant, displaced person or refugee from Syria or any other war-torn region. So I get that. I've got a caller from Israel here, Alexander in Israel. The whole of the EU is now really in a very worried state about immigration from predominantly Muslim countries. Are they right to think that?
Hello. First, I just want to say thank you for having me on. Secondly, I do think there's a big problem with it. I think people are understandably worried. I think it's a real shame that many good, genuine refugees get caught up in this mess and they have to bear the brunt of a lot of it. But the fact is, in my opinion, these kind of questions have arisen in no small part because of a collective failure on the part of the people of the Muslim faith. There seems to have been this failure to unite in a united fashion to condemn it, to stand up together. I know you cannot have all of them, but a vast majority, so that the message is clear to people who do have genuine fears, so the message is clear to them that most Muslims are against it. And I just don't feel that message has been conveyed to the vast majority of Europeans and certainly not British people.
Well, is that why this poll has produced the results that it has? Are a lot of people now making up their minds that actually the religion itself is bad? I mean, are they following the doctrine, if you like, of Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, who says he wants the Quran banned in the Netherlands? I mean, that's quite dangerous. That's quite dangerous talk, Alexander, isn't it?
I agree. I don't think. I'll address the second point. I don't think that the Quran should be banned. There's no point doing that. It's also not counterproductive. It's also not the right thing to do morally. Everybody should have a right to follow and believe in whatever religion they like. However, the fact remains, in my opinion, is that I know many people say that the religion has been misunderstood. The previous caller said it. He said it's been misunderstood if you don't understand it, and that's again. I have no doubt that gentleman was being genuine. I only know one thing. I don't see any other people numbering in the millions, of which there is a small but worrying minority. I mean, we're told it's a minority, and that's okay. You can believe that, you can not believe that, but there is a worrying number of people misinterpreting it. I quote, I put on speech marks, of course. Misinterpreting it. I don't see any other people or religion in any kind of minority practicing these kinds of acts. I just don't see it.
No, I mean, look, there is a problem, Alexander, and there are far too many people, a minority, but far too many people who are prepared to go along with ideas that are abhorrent to our way of life. There is a massive problem with integration within our country, which the government Casey report admits. But I'm with you, Alexander. I think if we demonise everybody that is Muslim, we will make the problem even worse than it is. And thank you for your long-distance call. And I wonder what Pianka from Staines has to say about this issue. Are we getting a bit too hysterical about this, Pianka?
I don't think so. Hi, it's a privilege to talk to you, and thank you for everything you've done. And so I also want to actually bring this up to you that I am your supporter. I support Trump, and I say that with pride, but I have lost friends because of my opinion, and I don't understand why people are still looking at people like you and I as if they are at the wrong or something, after so many things happening, after Trump winning and that sort of thing. But
well, it's somewhat ironic, isn't it, that the European Parliament that I spoke to this morning, and you heard the clip at the top of the show, that European Parliament last month was screaming, what an appalling, disgusting, awful man this Trump is. He wants to suspend for 90 days people coming, but actually their own voters take a harder view line on this than Trump does. So they've got a real problem here.
And I actually supported the pro-Trump, whatever it was, petition online. So, okay, coming back to the question, I think I really want to bring this up and say that all the religions have had certain things which are not good and certain things which are good for humanity. For example, in Hinduism, there used to be things like sati system. That's one example, very extreme, where women used to be burnt alive after their husband died on the funeral pyre. So what happened when basically the British Raj came, that was abolished. Yeah? Now there's so many things, as in customs. Now this is written in Puranas, it's written there. So it's basically that there's so many customs that need to change in Islam, which they're not changed. And I don't think everybody...
Pianka, I'm going to have to push you because of time. Does Islam need a reformation?
Definitely, and I think it needs to start from within Islam. So it needs to start from within that community, and it needs so that the people, they're good people, the people who...
Pianka, I'm going to have to stop you. We're out of time, but I thank you very much for making your point that all religions have their problems and that Islam could do with a reformation. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC and live from here in Strasbourg. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
The White House says President Trump demanded Michael Flynn resign as National Security Advisor yesterday because he no longer trusted him. It's after he admitted lying about conversations he had with the Russian ambassador to the US. The Defence Secretary has told LBC he can't rule out Britain using cyber attacks against its enemies. It says the Queen opened the new £2 billion National Cybersecurity Centre in London. And it's claimed the half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been assassinated in Malaysia. Kim Yong-nam is reported to have been targeted by 2 female North Korean agents at an airport in Kuala Lumpur. LBC weather. Cloudy and mostly mild tonight with showers possible in parts, a low of 5 Celsius. Overcast tomorrow with a mix of sunny spells and showers, a high of 12 degrees.
LBC Travel. Good evening, I'm Andy Lake. Well, the M25 still very slow clockwise between junction 22 for London Coney and 25 for the A10. That's because of an accident earlier on. All lanes are back open now, though. The M4 also queuing coming into London, approaching junction 2 for the A4 at Brentford. It's down to just one lane because a car's broken down in the inside lane. The North Circular still slow eastbound between Staples Corner and Henley's Corner. That's after a car broke down. In Cheshire, the M65 is queuing westbound between 14 for Hapsford and 10 for the A49 at Stretton after an accident earlier. And in West Yorkshire, still severe delays westbound approaching junction 27 for Gilderson. There was an accident and a fuel spillage this afternoon. All lanes have finally just been reopened though. As for the rails, quite a few things to look out for. Thameslink have delays of around 15 minutes northbound at Farringdon. A train's broken down there. London Midland and Virgin Trains West Coast have delays northbound as well via Watford Junction after a passenger was taken ill. And do beware on the Tube network. Chiswick Park Station on the District Line and Southgate Station on the Piccadilly Line are closed. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
The family member who was concerned. The neighbour who felt uneasy. The teacher who was worried. The coach who noticed at practice. And you. Child abuse. If you think it, report it. Visit gov.uk/tackle child abuse to find out how. Together, we can tackle child abuse.
You're the backbone of our business. Strong, reliable, plus you look great. And you're really well built. Oh, cheers, Steve. Not you, Terry.
The Renault Traffic with 4 years 0% APR, servicing, roadside assistance, up to 4 years warranty and 3 What Van Awards. Make it part of your team. Visit a Renault Pro Plus specialist dealer to find out more. Business users and participating dealers only. Minimum deposit of 20%. Renault Finance hire purchase. Register by 31st of March. Subject to status. T's and C's apply. See renault.co.uk/offers.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
At Oak Furnitureland, quality and price are both important. So make sure you don't miss our winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Our biggest ever winter sale is now on. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
Do you have a pension? Maybe you've got more than one. How do you know if they're in the right pension funds, making as much money as possible for your retirement? Answer is, you probably don't. At The Pension Works, our fully qualified independent financial advisors could add instant value to your retirement fund. Simply text the word YES to 83222 for your free Pension Works health check. That's YES to 83222 today. Your pensions working harder with The Pension Works.
Introducing QuickBooks Connect, the big event to grow your small business on March the 7th at Tobacco Dock. Hear the stories of big-name entrepreneurs like business magnate Lord Sugar, small business guru Mary Portas, and many more. Connect with industry experts and network with peers. Learn practical skills during a full day of workshops, like how to find new customers using social media. Find out more at quickbooks.co.uk/grow. Register now for only £48 with promo code GROW.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
The world is changing. Boy, it's changing quickly. I myself could not believe that a majority of 10 of the biggest EU member states now want a total ban on anybody from those predominantly Muslim countries coming in and settling in their countries. And interestingly, only 20% of that poll thought any form of immigration was actually acceptable. Fascinating. And your Facebook messages coming in. Tom Mason says, Merkel realises the mistake she made. What more proof do you need that it hasn't worked? Well, she's U-turned, Tom, hasn't she? Paul Barnes says, I think we've had enough immigration in this country now, whether it's Muslims, Europeans or anyone. We need to look after British people who are living on the street first. And Leslie Hindor says, it's not a race issue, it's more of a culture issue. Whoever lives here has to integrate, not create their own totally separate community living by its own rules. And Leslie, I think you're right. I think fear of terrorism aside, I think this is the issue. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful that in our country, the race relations industry have spent so much of the last 40 years actually deliberately seeking to divide us rather than trying to bring us together. And our leaders, our gutless leaders, who aren't even prepared to stand up and defend the fact that we live in a Judeo-Christian culture. We're tolerant, of course we're tolerant, of all different religions and different minorities. In fact, the British, I would say, are probably the most tolerant country in the whole of Europe. But what we really don't like and what we object to are people being able to live, frankly, under a different set of laws to us. And there's been too much of that going on, too much of a blind eye that's been turned by the police and many others for fear of being seen to be racist or Islamophobic. And I think what this poll tells you is that needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. That's my view. What does Cynthia in Honor Oak think of this? Cynthia, good evening.
Hi, I think that we just need to be totally honest with ourselves. You know, a lot of the issues that we do have stem from mistakes that we made in the past. You know, you can't really tell, and I'm excluding the European Union for now, you can't really tell people from outside the European Union that they can't come here because you were in their countries taking them back to your country to build your countries, you know. Like, my parents come from, like, Africa, and, you know, they were first generation migrants. They came here, they worked their asses off. They've never claimed anything or taken anything. They've worked for everything that they have. And then for you to now say, oh, yeah, we don't want these people. A lot of people that genuinely do come here genuinely want to contribute. But I feel like we need to start being honest and putting our hands up and saying, yes, we've made mistakes. You know, a lot of these Muslim countries, we've gone to their countries and committed atrocities. We've sold a lot of the arms that they're using to them as well. We need to put our hands up, sit down and actually, you know, have a real discourse and say, you know what, we've both made mistakes, but how do we move forward? And in saying that as well, it is a two-way street. You know, we go to Saudi Arabia, we go to a lot of these Muslim countries, we're forced to conform to their rules. It should be the same situation. You know, we get thrown in jail if we don't conform, and it should not that we should start throwing people in jail over here, but we should start forcing people to conform or to, as you say, to integrate and to learn English and to get involved. You know, it is a two-way street, and I feel like everyone has made mistakes. Mistakes have been made on every side, but we just need to start being honest.
Cynthia, I think you've made your point extremely well, and I do agree with you. I think we have made mistakes, and I'm not talking about colonial guilt, you know, going back to the 19th century so much. We've made some recent mistakes, and I think what we did in Iraq and in Libya, I think we actually opened the door for ISIS. I think we opened the door for extremism. So I do agree with you that we do bear some guilt. But, you know, you made the point. Your parents came here and worked their backsides off and integrated and became part of the community and paid their taxes and obeyed the law. But what do you do, Cynthia? How do you, you know, when you go to that suburb of Oldham that I went to last year, where there appears to be, you know, house after house of people who don't speak English at all, I mean, can you force people to integrate? How do we do it?
And even in saying that, that's not the people. Like, who allowed them to buy those houses? That's got nothing to do with the people. You understand? Like, I mean, I would happily just have a street full of my friends, but I can't actually do that. But if that does end up happening, who has allowed that to happen? That then comes from central government. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's got nothing to do with the people on the ground, and I feel that a lot of hate is being perpetuated at the people on the ground, and that's so unfair. You know, it wasn't too long ago that Christianity was justified for some of the atrocities that it was committing, and now, you know, so it is like I said, it is a two-way street. It's fair enough all these people are saying that, but it's actually not these people's fault, and being vocal about it only then creates tension within the area, and then these people might feel like, hang on a minute, I'm not going to stand for that, I'm going to fight back. It wasn't their fault. It then comes from central government. So you need to now speak to central government. But even they know that their hands are tied because all this history then comes into effect, because if they make a wrong move, they will be accused of racism. If they don't do enough, then they're accused of not doing enough. And I think we really just need to actually put as many heads as we can together and come up with a solution that is beneficial to everybody without pointing fingers.
We've got a lot to do, Cynthia, and thank you. Your texts and tweets, Nigel, most of this Muslim immigration is happening through the asylum loophole. Until that is closed, we will continue to have this problem. Anton, I get one here. Farage, it starts, which gives you a clue, doesn't it? You now purport to be concerned about women and patriarchy, yet you dismiss Trump's misogyny as just locker room talk. You're a total fraud, rabble-rouser, and slimy opportunist, says Joe. Well, thank you. Nigel, would Germany, France, or the UK be better places to live if they were Muslim-free? John from Romford. Well, John, the answer to that is that there are a lot of Muslim people living in Britain, integrated, working, paying taxes, obeying the law. And my concern with this opinion poll, my concern with the speed at which people are making their minds up on this issue, my concern is that we could finish up demonising good people, and that is my concern. But I wonder, back to your calls, Paul in Liverpool, is a total ban of people coming from predominantly Muslim countries just a little bit over the top, Paul?
Well, I went to a mosque in Liverpool. People have been talking about trying to understand Islam, to try and get a grasp of what Islam's all about. And the imam, who was standing in front of the congregation, he said, Allah has given us this country, and every knee will bow at the name of Allah. Islam is a takeover movement. It already believes that Allah has given them this country. They're just taking over. We will have one choice, either convert or go. We will be pushed aside. Now, why are we allowing this to happen? This is colonization. This is takeover. Why have our elite allowed this over the generations? The Muslim population has exploded in this country. In 1971, there was just 70,000 Muslims. Nobody knows how many there are now. There may be as many as 7 million. We know there are 2,000 mosques in Britain now. When the Queen came on the throne, there was only one. Islam is exploding in this country. Its demography is increasing dramatically, and we're under serious threat. And people have got to wake up to this problem. We've got to do something about it. Do we let Islam simply take over? No. We have to stop immigration, yes, but their birth rate is exploding as well. They're filling up the maternity hospitals. We're going to reach the point where we're going to have to say to the Muslims, it's time to go home. Go back to the Dar al-Islam. You don't belong in the West. You've nothing to contribute here. Those who have integrated can stay, but if you want to remain in your way of life, which is anathema to the West and is totally against our culture, you must go. That's where we really should stand.
Paul, it's strong stuff. I don't know what the Muslim population is. The last estimate I saw was something just over 3 million. What is true is that it's increased by 75% over the course of the last 10 years. So that is absolutely true. And whilst you have found an imam who is talking about a takeover, I mean, you think we're involved here, Paul, in a cultural war, don't you? You think it's Christianity versus the rest, basically.
Islam, it's their duty to take ground for Islam. That every Muslim has that duty imposed upon them. They have got to take territory. Islam is an expansionist religion. It's a political system as well. It's an imperialist system, and it's expanded around the world, and it's continuing to expand. Do we let them take over, or do we stop them? That's the issue.
Paul, you make your point incredibly powerfully. I'm particularly keen to hear from Muslim callers in the last part of this show who tell me, please, that you've not been told to take over the country, because I'm certain, however strongly Paul feels, and whatever bad things have been said, and there have been too many, I'm certain there are very large numbers of Muslims living in Britain who, for them, this is a nightmare. This cultural divide widening is making their lives for them and their kids worse, and I'm very keen to hear from any of you. Right now, you're listening to Nigel Farage, live here from Strasbourg, and the time is 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
David Davis says the rights of EU citizens here and Brits living in the EU must be the first item on the Brexit talks agenda. Do you agree?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Selling is just as easy as buying on eBay.
Come on, Dan. You promised you'd clear out your bedroom during the school holidays. Look at all this stuff you don't play with anymore.
Giant water guns.
You spend way too much time playing on these things.
Video games.
And you haven't been near a court in years.
Tennis racket.
I'm not sure you need this anymore. You're 16, Dan.
Giant cuddly teddy bear. With millions of buyers ready and waiting, there's no better place for you to sell than eBay. The ultimate surprisingly good clear-out of his bedroom shop.
I know how to avoid a soggy bottom. I know the name of cinema's most famous white shark. I know all the things you can do with a Maris Piper. And I definitely know the TV show that made this music famous. But I don't know my state pension.
There's a simple way to find out when you can get your state pension and how much it'll be. Search Your State Pension and get to know yours.
A big night out. A lumpy bed. There are so many things that can keep us awake. But if you can't sleep because you're worried about paying the bills, we can help. Capitalise provides free, impartial and confidential face-to-face support to help people in trouble manage their debt. Find out more at capitalise.org.uk.
This goes out to Gavin Owen, founder of SpaChem, chemicals for spas and pools. Gav's not just dipped his toe into starting a business, by GoDaddy he's dived right in. At first he was a small fish in an even smaller pond, but GoDaddy's email marketing tool really opened the floodgates. Now things are going swimmingly. He's my man, the merman. This spot's for you, G.
Go SpaChem, go Daddy. Taking your business online.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
At Oak Furnitureland, quality and price are both important. So make sure you don't miss our winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Our biggest ever winter sale is now on. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
I was kind of restricted in what I could eat. I had loads of discomfort. It really got to a point where I needed to have my teeth restored.
If it's time for dental implants, talk to Darwood and Tanner. Their pioneering treatments have helped many patients who thought having permanent teeth again would be impossible.
Having all of my teeth restored just gives you the confidence and the feeling of when I was younger, having fixed teeth.
Visit whenyousmile.com.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Strasbourg, only on LBC.
That a majority of people in 10 big EU states now want a total ban on anyone coming into their countries from predominantly Muslim countries in the Middle East and North Africa is an astonishing shift of public opinion. And our last caller, Paul in Liverpool, said, well, as far as he's concerned, Islam wants to colonise and completely take over our country. And I'm particularly keen to hear from people who are practising Muslims who say, no, 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 that is not what we're about. Our first caller is Feros in Wembley. Feros, tell me how you feel about this issue. Are we getting a bit hysterical about immigration from Islamic countries?
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for having me on. Just to answer Paul, if you believe in God, God has created yourself and myself and my parents and all the people from Adam and Eve. And God has created this earth. Therefore, if the Imam has said God has created this country, which is absolutely right, God has created America, your lovely country, all the countries. So the answer is God has created everything. That's what the Imam says. Paul didn't understand that. Paul created, I am from Bangladesh. Bangladesh has been created by them. Now, that is Paul's answer. God has created everything. That's what we believe. Myself, my kids, everything he has created, even the earth, also the United Kingdom. So that is for Paul. However, now these 10 developed countries, they say that they want to ban completely from these Muslim countries. I don't know how many Christian people are being killed by Muslims. Right. George W. Bush and Blair killed 1.5 million people in Iraq. They are Muslims. Now, will Germany and these 10 countries ban America and Americans to all Christians to come to their countries because of their religion? 1.5 million people. You count them, number one. Number two, Mao Zedong killed a lot of people. Hitler killed a lot of people, millions of Jews. Will you ban, or these developed countries will ban this all Christian country from Germany? This Modi, Narendra Modi in India, he has killed huge number of people.
But there's hang on, Feros. You're making your points with great passion, but I think the German people in 1945 did apologise, atone for everything they'd done. I think to ban a German today from coming to your country because of what Hitler did wouldn't make any sense at all. The fear, I think, Feros, there are two fears. The first is that if you have an open door to some of these countries, bad people will come in. And ISIS themselves have said they will use those routes to send their people in. But the second problem is one of integration. And why is it that there are too many areas of our country where Muslims are not integrated in society? How do we solve that problem? If we solve that problem, then I suspect people's view will change.
Look, Nigel, the things are changing. because of the immigration rule. For example, my daughter can marry any Tom, Dick, and Harry from any country, right? So probably the uneducated people came in this country who were not interested to integrate with the people. But mostly educated people, Muslims, they are contributing. I'm employing 10 people. Therefore, I'm paying huge number of tax. They are paying tax as well at the same time. I'm contributing to the country, and I feel like I'm part of this country. Simple as that. Now, so it will gradually change. Like as in Australia, mostly people have gone who are educated. In Canada, mostly people are educated, no matter where they have come from. But we have got a bit of different system where any farmer or any laborer could come in this country. Well, they are coming also from Europe as well. So that actually they didn't manage to integrate. They are not interested. They are still backdated. But the modern people, surely they will integrate. And
well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Okay.
I mean, I really do hope you're right. One last point, Farage. I've got a lot of other callers.
Yes, one last point. Nigel, how many books have you read in your life?
Oh, goodness gracious me. I don't know. Go on, why? Why do you ask?
No, that is a question. Good question. Why I have asked. Because none of this LBC's presenter ever have read Holy Quran. I'm highly happy if Netherlands ban Holy Quran. You go and read it. And if you find any mistake in it, you ban in this country as well. Because most of the people don't know what they're talking about, like as Trump, like as yourself.
Well, hang on, Farage. No. I'm not going to have a fight with you on this. I've never, ever, ever spoken out against the religion of Islam. I've spoken out against Islamic terrorism, and I have actually had a very, very good comprehensive lecture on the Quran. There are parts at the end of it that are slightly worrying, just as in the Bible. There are parts of the beginning of it that are slightly worrying, and, we've had some good points made tonight, that all religions have done bad things. Farage, you had more than a fair crack of the whip. I'm going to go to Jamal in Kingston. Jamal, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Thank you for having me on the show.
Not a bit.
I just wanted to give you a bit of background. First of all, I'm a British-born Muslim here. My father came into the UK in 1957, as he never tries to tell me, with £3 in his pocket. And he worked very hard, became an accountant, and fortunately educated me well in the private school system. I'm now a father myself, and I have my own businesses, and I employ lots of people. And I can tell you wholeheartedly that integration is 100% responsible for my, growth and where I stand today. I am very proud to be a Brit and very proud to be a Muslim with it. But it is about integration that's led me to this path, and I think the path to that was education, which allowed me to be who I am today. That's the background. I will say, in terms of where I stand on this issue, I think that I'm going to be a little controversial now. I don't mean to be combative, but I think you, in your campaign at the time when you were I'm very pro-Europe. I voted to stay in Europe. I think you won your ticket.
You mean the European Union, Jamal, don't you?
The European Union. I do mean the European
Thank
Union.
you. It's very different. It's nothing to do with Europe, but go on.
I appreciate the European Union, excuse me. In terms of, part of your campaign, there was that famous poster with you standing with all the immigration people behind you. That allowed you to win the place. And I'm very, very anti what Trump is doing in the States in terms of, the blanket statements. And I think that what he's playing on and what the Brexit vote ended up doing, and it's actually what Paul, it's voters like Paul who don't understand. You made the point there are 3 million Muslims in this country. That's 5% roughly of our nation. And at the end of the day, it is the takeover point is absolutely, it's an uneducated view. The fact is that Muslim is a religion of peace. The Quran, you rightly said, it does have some worrying bits in it, but they are, like most religions, like the Bible, its interpretation. And at the end of the day, I am. The thing is that as a Muslim, people don't realize it is the fastest growing religion in the world, the second largest in the world. But there are so many different elements to it. There are sects upon sects of Shia.
Jamal, I get that, Jamal. But can I just ask you a very quick yes/no answer? Do you understand why voters all over Europe are worried about this issue?
I think I do understand it, but it is the politicians who have actually played on the ignorance, unfortunately, of people in this world who actually don't understand what it is that it's a tiny minority of the 1.5 billion Muslims in the world.
No. We know all that. We know all that. We know all that. But, Jamal, what is fascinating about this is actually the people are further ahead than any of the politicians, with perhaps the exception of Geert Wilders. They're way ahead of Trump, and that's the remarkable thing. On Facebook, James Moss says, "Love for all, hate for none," written on the front of a mosque I passed today, just to throw in a genuine example of Islam in the UK. Well, that's a very good one. Colin May says, "The legacy of Bush and Blair is being felt now more than ever. They are mainly responsible for today's problems. They unsettled the areas concerned and demolished stability." Difficult to argue against that. Will in Evesham, you're my last caller of the evening. You've got 30 seconds to make your point.
I just think you're playing a usual game now. You're trying to make yourself like some kind of fair broker. You know, do you think this is a racism issue? Are we getting taken over? The reality is your destructive, negative campaign during Brexit has, just as your last caller said there, has caused a lot of issues. There's been a massive increase in hate campaign. That totally disingenuous poster you stood in front of.
Well, it was true, wasn't it? It was a factual picture.
Nigel, are you not running with the UKIP Paul Nuttall's story this evening when he was trying to claim that he got a close...
Do you know what? We're not talking about party politics tonight. We're talking about an absolutely fundamental change, Will, that has happened. It's a big change.
It's a genuine issue, Nigel.
And
there's a leader of your party
well,
who's
I tell you what we'll do, Will. I tell you what we'll do. We'll wish each other good night on that point. Thank you very much indeed. When we have debates on this show, we try and stick to the debates. We'll have other evenings where we discuss party politics and other things. My final thought on this is nobody in this country has been more criticised than me for talking about being strict on immigration, for saying we should be afeared of terrorism coming into Europe and coming into Britain. And I do think that Islamic terrorism is one of the greatest threats that we're going to face in our lifetimes. But we have to be careful here. We have to be intelligent here. We do not want to go to war with the whole of Islam. If we do that, we will actually further damage attempts at integration, possibly drive even more people into extremism, and our children would not thank us for it. Be tough, but be fair, and let's try and integrate what we have in this country already. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. I'm back tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, live again from here in Strasbourg. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. And coming up after the news, what should happen to EU